Hello everyone, I'm Ivana.
And I'm Preeti.
And this is Targum Tea, a podcast which focuses on pop culture reviews and social media. In today's episode, we will be talking about the new Amazon original mockumentary Borat subsequent movie film. Warning, this review contains spoilers. So, y'all gonna have to stay with me for this plot overview because it's a doozy. Literally, okay, so this film is the sequel to the first Borat film. And basically the whole country of Kazakhstan thinks that Borat made a fool of all of them. So they called Borat in and was like, you made a fool of us, and now we're gonna make you go back to the US and win the respect of Ronald McDonald Trump by giving Mike Pence a monkey, or else Borat gets executed. But then somehow Borat's daughter, Tutar, broke into the monkey cage, ate it, and arrived to America instead of the monkey. So like Borat is like, he's pissed, right? But then he sees like this news sequence where Mike Pence is like eyeballing women and whatnot. And he goes, yeah, I'm gonna gift him my daughter. And then we go on his journey. That's
It's such like a wild start, like right off the bat. But I think he saw Donald Trump. I think he saw Donald Trump looking at women instead of Mike Pence.
I think it was both. No, it was both Trump and Mike Pence in a room, and it was like a news sequence where they were like saying how they were eyeballing women and saying, "Oh, she's hot. Look at her." And then they're like, "Oh,
no.
Pence."
No, it was Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. That's who it was.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he said, "Look at her. She's hot." That was Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
So then, yeah. So then they thought since they couldn't go to Trump's. They couldn't give the monkey to Trump because he took a dump in front of Trump Towers. Yeah. So that they're like, Borat is banned. So they're like, okay, who's the next best thing? Oh, Donald Trump's BFF, Mike Pence. But they called him a pussy grabber. So then they were like, okay, since he likes women, I'm going to gift him my daughter. So then that's basically the journey of the film.
Yeah.
It's really a doozy because it's like a very heavily political film as well, and it's just I love just weird, strange films. I already said this before in like another podcast, so you already know I love this film. I love Borat and I love this one too. It's just like so I just love the strange sequences that they have, and like for me I liked it.
Yeah, I know. I've never actually watched Borat, so this is like my first time.
Really?
I never heard about the actor. I feel like I'm one of those people. I said this the last time too. I think with the other movie that we did that I'd never heard about. That whole thing happening. I've never heard about this either. I'm one of those people.
So basically, the whole
under a rock.
So for people who haven't watched Borat, it's basically a mockumentary on him going to the US, like he's a reporter. They sent him to the US to find out the different, because America is called the greatest country in the world, So they're like, okay, what makes America so great? And they're trying to find those things to implement it in Kazakhstan. Yeah. So that's what basically the film was in Borat. And then Borat 2 was like, no, y'all made a fool of Kazakhstan. Now you're gonna go back. And yeah. Did I think this film was funny? Yes. Did I think it was funnier than the first film? No. Did I think it worked? Like this film, did I think it worked for what it was? Yes. But did I think they succeeded in like replicating what they did in the first film? No. So it's just, I like the first film better.
Yeah.
But this one, I feel like this film, it was more plotty. Mm-hmm. The first film, what worked about it was the way we were experiencing different groups of people, different cultures, and the reactions we get from those group of people towards this like character that they created to Borat. So I liked how it was just, a lot of it was unscripted in the first film, and it was just like Borat acting dumb, Borat pissing people off, and the content is their reactions to him. And like just think how different people react to him. It was just like fun to watch. And it was just like I laughed a lot in the scenes, and it was just unscripted. That's what made the first film like good, This one, it was a lot of script. it was just a lot scripted,
I
and
mean,
I missed that
definitely
element.
had to be a lot of script. Like, I mean, like just like start out like as soon as he landed in the States, like one of the first things he did is he went to look for a phone, and he ended up like watching porn on the phone. I mean, that had to be scripted. Like,
I'm pretty. I don't even. Yeah, that. I mean,
and he
him.
was like looking for a cage for his daughter, and like throughout this whole film, like the vast majority of people, he asks such like outlandish things, and they act like completely normal to it. Like, there's no way
Yeah.
that it wasn't scripted fully. Like, there had to be like bullet points. There had to be something, you know.
I mean, I feel like, well, by like scripted also, I mean, I think they casted also some actors in
Yeah.
this film, because in the first film, majorly, I think all of them, or like almost all of them, because I know Pamela Anderson was in on the joke, but like mostly all of them in the first film weren't actors, and you can see how like they were genuinely like, right? And like, what is he gonna do? Like, why is he doing this? Ew, you know? But that's what, I don't know, that's what made it more enticing for me, the first film. And this one, I feel like most of them were already in on it, and they're like, okay, do your thing, and then we're just gonna react.
Just to add on
That was,
really quickly,
oh, go ahead.
the one person that I know like wasn't like fully on was the babysitter. So basically, I'm not sure if
Oh
you
yes,
heard about
yes,
this,
yes, she
and it
wasn't.
kind of goes a bit off the movie. But I was reading about like the news that surrounded this movie, and one of the things that kept on coming up was the babysitter. Her name was Jenny Jones, and she comes out after this movie saying that she didn't know that it was a
Right.
documentary. I mean, she knew that it was a documentary, but she didn't know it was like a movie.
Yeah, she didn't know it was
Yeah,
satirical.
and so she spent like the whole year like worrying about the 15-year-old daughter,
Aww.
and I mean, here's the thing, I get it, and the thing is, in a lot of her interviews, she basically said that yeah, it's her fault because she didn't read the actual
Fine print.
she didn't read the papers that she was given for like fully,
Right.
and so I think she didn't know. But I think a lot of news people are kind of coming out to be like, oh, like she's just saying it because she wants to get paid more. I'm like, no, but
I mean,
some part of it just rubbed me the wrong way, because in this movie, this 15-year-old daughter, she's come from a backwards country. At least that's how it's shown. Like, a lot of her thoughts are backwards in like the way that like we would think of it. One of the big things in this movie is that this 15-year-old daughter, Tata,
Tatur, Tatur,
Tatur,
yeah.
Tatur. Okay, she thinks that she needs to get
Oh no,
big.
Tutar. Sorry.
Tutar. Tutar. She needs to get refreshed in order for men to like her. And so this babysitter's like, no, you don't need to change anything about who
I
you
like.
are. And that's like half the movie, honestly. Like, the father like realizing that he loves his daughter in a
Right.
more
That was so
way,
cute as well.
and the daughter realizing that, hey, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I can do anything less than a man, and she kind of
Right.
gained the like independent sort of thing. And so, just to start, like, a lot of her thoughts were backwards, and so this babysitter kind of helped her, obviously
Right.
scripted, and she knew. But the babysitter didn't know, so she spent the whole year like worrying for this daughter. So
That's
rubbing
so
the wrong way, but yeah.
Wait, why did it rub you the wrong way? Oh, that she didn't really know?
Yeah, so like the poor woman spent so much time worrying about this kid
Her.
who shouldn't need to worry about,
This kind of gives me like faith in humanity too, like how this like Janice, the babysitter, she didn't really know that these people were a character playing a character. They thought these people were like for real, And just seeing how she reacted towards this girl and like giving her advice and just being like caring, it was like, oh my gosh, like it gave me like faith in humanity. Like, people are nice, like some people are actually like genuinely like nice and concerned and care for people. And it was just like, I loved her character. I loved Jenny. Like, she was such a sweet person. And the fact that like you said right now that she didn't really know that these were people playing characters, it's like, wow, she actually like cared for her and like didn't really judge her. She just tried to teach her ways and try to like bring good in her, And I was like, wow, people are good, like there are good people in this world.
Yeah, I agree. But honestly, I think
So that
I
was
think about what you said about the first Borat film, and I think a lot of what you said is true, because throughout this whole movie, the father, his name's Borat, so he ends up going to a lot of these places and asking for like wild things, and I feel like if they scripted it the way that they did the first movie, like they didn't tell anybody what was going on, and they filmed their actual live reaction to what was going on, they would have gotten a lot of like shocked people and like
Well, I mean, I don't think they could have. I mean, like Sacha Baron knew, like he's Borat, and he knew that he wasn't gonna be able to replicate the first film. Like he knew that because he's gotten so popularized. Like he even showed it in the film. Like once he went outside, people recognized him. He knew he wasn't gonna get that genuine reaction from people that he really wanted.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that wasn't gonna work, you know? So that's why I said like it worked for what it was by creating sort of a little like plot and bringing in, and also before I bring that up, I feel like since social media has been like I think Borat, this film, like in 2006, like the first one, influenced a lot of people doing these kinds of things that he's doing in public, like pranks. And like now you see like an uplift.
I thought of YouTube when I saw this. Oh my God, yeah.
That's what basically rose YouTube and like these prank people on YouTube and whatnot. So that's why I feel like in this film, they weren't either way going to get, even if they didn't even know Borat, they weren't going to get that many reactions from people because I feel like
people have
wisened up desensitized because somebody's on the street and somebody's doing something dumb, you're gonna be like, oh, that's probably for YouTube, and you guys are just gonna like look the other way. Like everybody's so desensitized to like jokes anymore and like pranks. So I don't think this is gonna work the same as the Borat film, but Borat basically made YouTube, like not YouTube, but like the prank side of YouTube and all that.
The genre,
yeah, that's basically
so true.
And I feel like Tutar, Maria Bakalova, she carried this film. Like that was such a good person to get, like an actress to get for this, because she basically, like, nobody knew who she was, first of all. So whatever she did on the streets when she went to that convention, like it was perfect, right? And she was on the same level as the character of Borat. So I was like, she's perfect. Like she's perfect. She carried the film. Like I loved every single moment that she was in. Every single scene she was in.
I feel like a better way to film this was to kind of have Borat as a side character. And I mean, in some ways that they kind of did it, because as you said, she definitely carried this whole film. But I feel like if they changed up the script and they left Borat in his jail, and they said, and they basically told his daughter, like, oh, you have to, like, I'm not sure, like, go to the States and save your father from death. And it would have worked better because, as you said, nobody knows her. Like, she was an unknown actress kind of prior to this film. And I feel like we would have gotten, they would have gotten better content in some ways.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like Borat's such a character. Like, he's Borat. Like, everybody knows him. So I feel like he needs to be also like the main character of the film, He just, in my opinion, he just needs to be there. And I feel like he and Maria worked well together. Anyways, like they really worked well together as characters and how they came across to everybody. So I feel like it worked.
Honestly, I think one of the first things that kind of made me laugh about this movie, and I was watching this movie and it reminded me in some ways of Kill Bill, that they were both kind of like extreme movies, but this one was definitely
a lot. Kill Bill?
Yeah, in some ways, like at least like in some ways, like of like the jokes and like how people were like nude and like there's so much like sexuality in that film and in this film in some ways that I was like, I kind
Kill Bill was about murdering people.
That's true. That is so true. Yeah, but I feel like in some ways like there could be parallels drawn. At least I felt in some ways that the comedy style of Borat and a few of like Kill Bill's line were kind of like on the same page. But I'm going off a bit off topic. So one of the first things that kind of made me laugh was that Borat comes back to his home to see his son and to have sexy time with his wife, as he says, and he goes in and he sees his neighbor, and his neighbor's like taken, over his whole house, and his sons like are pissed off at him, and one of his sons like, I want to change my name to Jeffrey Epstein. I'm just like, what?
Oh my gosh.
That was
The
so
names that they created for everybody was so funny. I just couldn't stop. When he said, remember when he went, Borat went into, they were trying to enter this place, right? And they needed to seem more American. So he changed his name. He introduced himself as John Chevrolet. And I'm like, boy, what? I couldn't stop laughing. And then when they, oh my gosh, wait, continue. Were you gonna say something?
No, go on.
Okay. The scene, I loved a lot of scenes were okay for me, but there was a lot of funny scenes that I would rewatch. There was like moments where they were in the tanning. There was a lot of controversial lines too, but like the tanning scene where he asked what color is best for racist family. And then she was like, I like also how they're saying all these like absurd things. And like when he goes into the store, it's like a Home Depot in a way, but like he goes into a store to buy his daughter a cage, and he tells them, I need to buy my daughter a cage. What is best suitable? How many girls can I fit in this cage? And they're just answering him like nothing. They're like, yeah, about 20. And he's like, how many people can I kill with this gas tank? I think he mentioned Jews. There were so many Jews joke like that he mentioned, but he was like, how many Jews can I kill in this van? And they're just answering him normally. I'm like, I would have just, if I was that person, like I would have been like, what are you talking about?
That's what makes me think like they were really clued in, because
I'm pretty sure
I wouldn't answer like that, and I feel like the vast majority of people wouldn't answer like that.
Yeah.
And at the very least, if you know you're being filmed, you wouldn't answer like that,
Right. It's just,
you're gonna be on film, like your whole reputation can be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I feel like they had to be clued in.
Yeah. I feel like some of them that weren't clued in was when they went to the when they went to the makeup store, and they were, Borat and his daughter were eating the lipstick, and the client was like, no, don't, I'm not the client, the owner was like, don't eat the lipstick. The other scene that probably wasn't scripted was when they were in the family crisis pregnancy council, and he's basically telling the guy, because Borat fed a cupcake to his daughter, and the cupcake had a little baby in it, but she swallowed it by mistake. So they went into the pregnancy health center and said, I put a baby in my daughter, please take it out. And the guy is like saying, no, God put that baby in there for a reason. It's a living thing. You can't just kill it. So I feel like that scene wasn't like, he probably was like, these people are crazy or whatnot. Like he was trying so hard not to like get pissed, but you could see that. But I feel like that scene wasn't scripted. There was a couple scenes that you just noticed, you saw that weren't scripted, but like the scenes, like there was a scene where I feel like they paid actors for this. The scene where he's in the middle. First of all, I love how they filmed this while events were happening, like how COVID-19 was starting to happen and this and that, and it was just like the film was going through that cycle. So I love that. So it was a scene where it was towards the end, the middle end, where Borat is out on the street. He's like, where is everybody? He goes up to this random guy on the street and says, where is everybody? And he goes, oh, we have to stay quarantined. That's why nobody's here. He goes, well, can I stay with you? And he just accepts him into his house. That doesn't happen. When does that happen? Yeah. I feel like that was paid actors too.
Yeah, and just to add on, I think one other scene that was probably scripted, well, that wasn't scripted actually, was this one scene where Borat's in the bathroom, and you can see that there are these two men there, and one of these men's faces is like blurred, and the other one just like,
oh yeah, that scene too.
It's just like, oh, and I think that definitely wasn't scripted because they were too awkward to be,
Right. There was a lot of political aspects in this film, and I read this article where it's just like, how do you draw the line between satire and like harmful behavior, and it's just, I was reading more about that because I was like, that's a good like thing to think about, and like how do you even draw that line?
Mm-hmm.
And I read this article about the Kazakh American Association, and they were speaking out. And they were saying things like Sacha Baron is a white person culturally appropriating and belittling everything we stand for, and
Yeah.
that he could have made up a fake country, and that their crew whitewashes their ethnicity and they're bullying them, traumatizing them, etc. And I was like, oh, okay, like they're deeply offended by this film because they also banned the first Borat film, right?
Yeah,
And it's like
they
14
banned
years
it.
after. So
The
I was like,
government went as far as to say, like, we don't want anything to do with this film. Like, the
right.
government, you know, like,
And they banned it for 14 years, right? And I was reading, I was like, wow, they're really deeply offended by this film. And you could see that this film is really satire and they didn't really mean it in that way, right? But they were deeply offended. And then they switched up out of nowhere. The Kazakhstan American Association, they switched up because they started putting the catchphrase that Borat says, the very nice. They started putting Borat's catchphrase in their tourism ads. So so Kazakhstan, they basically just they just took the Borat film. They're like, you know what? Whatever. You know what? So I was like, what? Like, y'all gonna write a letter about this film traumatizing your nation, right? They wrote this letter and then they go, whatever, let's use the catchphrase from the movie to sell our town. And I was like, huh?
you know what I think on this. I think honestly, just to like start out, I think the government and the people were definitely like offended when this movie came out, and I feel like
Right.
if they made a movie about this, like for like any other country, like, people would be offended because hello, like you're representing them in such like a bad light, and I feel like while the vast majority of people do know, you know, this is a joke, this isn't real, there's some idiots out there who are going to be like, hey, these are probably what the people, you know, this is like, this is real, and it's not obviously, but still. But I
Right.
think maybe somewhere down the line, like let's say 14 years later, I think they kind of saw like what a big thing this film became, and I think they kind of changed it around because it's their
Right.
point of changing mindsets, not like.
No, yeah, their reasoning was, I'm trying to remember. The reasoning was because COVID-19 happened and all their tourism was basically put on hold, you know? And they were like, okay, they thought like it was good seeing their country mentioned in the media, and they thought it was
Yeah.
like not in the nicest way, but it's still good to be out there, they said.
Yeah.
And they even mentioned like, oh, we would love to work with Baron in the future, maybe have him film here. And I was like, oh, I guess. And I feel like personally it wasn't really doing any, like the film wasn't really doing any bad for Kazakhstan because I didn't know anything about this country before watching Borat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And while watching it, the film in itself presented its way in such a satire way, in such a like in a strange way that anybody with basic common sense would know that this is not really how Kazakhstan is, you know? Like it's obviously for comedic purposes. So I like off the bat, I knew once he introduced his like my hometown Kazakhstan, like I knew once he gave those little details, like this is not how Kazakhstan is, obviously. He
Yeah.
just and I read this quote that Sacha Baron said, and how he said he chose this country because almost nobody in the US knew about this country, which allowed him to create this wild comedic fake world. And he was like also mentioned that the real Kazakhstan is a beautiful country and with a modern proud society. And I was like, yeah, I get that because now I know the country Kazakhstan. And I looked it up and I started like doing my little research on it, and I was like, okay, now I know a new thing, you know? So I feel like he did good in bringing that world up. I don't know. Yeah,
To the forefront of like what people think.
right. Because it brought more
Attention to it. Yeah, I agree. I have the exact same
country.
I have the exact same view as you do on this thing, that I didn't know about Kazakhstan. I mean, like I heard about it, obviously, but
Right.
you know, like I didn't know anything about it for the most part except its name. And it really, like, you know, it was interesting how they kind of used it, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm actually gonna look this up on Google and I'm gonna learn a bit more. And I think watching the second film, they started out by saying like the whole country was like pissed off at Borat for like making them, you know, and like having them in such a bad light that they put him in prison for for 14 years, and that's how they started out this movie. So I'm like, that's kind of like a good I'm sorry view. Like you put your character in prison for 14 years. Like,
I mean, that was funny. I also like how they blame the whole crisis that's happening here on Borat,
yeah.
and how basically this is the spoilers beware part of the but in the end, where it basically revolved around where they sent to get revenge to America, they sent Borat, I mean to the world basically, for making fun of Kazakhstan. They purposely sent Borat to they injected Borat with the coronavirus
Oh
and
God, yeah.
spread it across the country, and he was the one that did it. And I was like, wow, that's so funny. Also how it just happened. They were just filming before this happened, and it evolved in this whole film. I liked it. I feel like it was more than a film. Like even the first one too. Like it's like a cultural political film as well, because the amount of political messages and stuff was crazy. And you can really tell that this film takes such a liberal stand. You can definitely tell. And it's funny to me how they don't even show that by saying like liberal fat, like by taking that liberal stand. They show it through the Republican side. They show it by showing these different Republican groups, like in the saying all these things. Like when they were in the House, they started, these two men that were clearly Republican were saying how Obama sucks, that Clinton drinks kids' blood, and that Obama was the worst thing that happened. And then they went to a whole rally where they were like anti-masks, and you can see how they like, you guys are not oppressed. And they were basically showing them how they were like really upset that they have to wear masks, and that there was, what were they? There were people there with guns in the middle of a rally, like normal people with guns. And it's just, and then them chanting, inject Obama with the Wahoo flu. And and then showing how Trump in the beginning of the COVID-19 was like saying, oh, we're going, like, no, we got this under control. We're going to handle this. Da da da. But then at the end, you see that he's not in control, and just showing that flow, and showing that just showing these different groups of people and showing what they do, it just it really takes a political message. And
I agree.
yeah,
Definitely. This movie, it has so much politics in it and everything that I feel like after watching it, you're gonna, most likely pick a side. Like, do you agree or do you not agree? But definitely.
right.
But yeah, so what do you think about this movie on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 being terrible and 5 being great.
I'm going to rate this 3.5 teacups.
Yeah, same actually. Same.
Really? Okay, yay. We both liked it. I recommend this film. It's like, I recommend watch the first Borat film, like to everybody and to you too. Watch the first Borat film, but this one, yeah, I suggest watching this one too. But the first one, I feel like it's better in the way, like the comedic purposes, but this one also has a good plot, and it's like actually like sentimental. Like I was like, oh, this is such a nice ending. It's like about a father and daughter relationship and how it's like growing, so
yeah,
it was cute.
It was definitely.
It was cute too.
Honestly, I think so too. I've never watched the first one, but just from watching this one, my last thoughts on this is that, I mean, it's a really good movie. Like, give it a watch. But definitely, I think maybe because I watched so much YouTube and and I've watched there's this other movie. Oh yeah, it was Midsummer's movie that it came out, I think 2 summers ago or something like that. And I think because I watched a lot of these movies, I was kind of like skeptical about how honest these reactions were.
It's YouTube's ruining it.
Yeah, and so it kind of, in some ways, it kind of like took me out of the film. So I feel like I'm gonna give the first one a shot and see, because I know that's realistic. But definitely give it a shot. It's good. The plot line's good too, for the most part.
Yeah, I like it.
And that's all for today. Join us next time on Targum Tea for more reviews, and make sure to follow the Daily Targum on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more content.